Let me mute this.
Good morning. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm there. Thank you.
Matt, can you test my audio?
Yep, you're doing good.
Good, thank you.
Good morning, happy Wednesday. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you can go ahead and proceed with the preamble.
Okay, in compliance with the notification requirements of Ohio's meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone is participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities being recorded by way of the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed by way of YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter by way of our website and email have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Ms. Austin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could verify live stream?
Yes, it's being live streamed.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, as we do each time from the beginning of the pandemic, the city objects to the use of the chat function. If everyone
You are in the meeting now.
Thank you. If everyone was present here in 514, we would not be having side chats. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Mr. Bradley,
Here.
Mr. Maschke,
Here.
Mr. Dink,
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we'll proceed with the first case, docket A 13822, 3304 Monroe Avenue.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we have to, speaking of record, about the dockets that was withdrawn.
Will do. Okay, so building docket A 15322 has been withdrawn, and docket A 21022 have been withdrawn. So we'll begin with 13822, 3304 Monroe Avenue.
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is exterior maintenance issued on August 25th of 2022. Appeal received September 23rd of 2022, requesting for time to abate the violations. This was first scheduled before the board on January 18th of 2023 and was rescheduled to April 12th of 2023. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston, Law. With the appellant or his or her own attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Ronald Benz.
Did you hear him, Mr. Chairman?
No, not real clear.
Here, Mr. Benz, come sit here.
He's present in 514, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Here's the microphone.
Ronald Benz.
Okay, Mr. Benz, solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and proceed. Let us know what your plans are.
Well, I have, my front porch is in really bad shape, but I'm working on getting help to get it repaired. I called a couple places more than once. They haven't returned my call. I'm sure they're quite busy this time, but I'm in the process. I have some health issues. I got a friend of mine that's going to come over here and there and help me. We're going to start on it probably in the next 4 or 5 days as far as the cleaning part and all that. But in the meantime, I'm still trying to get help to get the porch fixed. It's in bad shape. There's no way I could afford to have it done, so I'm trying to get help, I guess, through the city, I guess, or whatever it is.
Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, do you live at this property?
Yeah,
So, Mr. Chairman, it is a homeowner occupied, and Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, I don't want to make any presumption. Are you over 60?
I'm 71.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, we will refer this to the senior initiative if it hasn't already been referred.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vanover.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Benz, how long do you think it's going to take to get it fixed?
That's a good question. Whenever they get back to me, I'm going to be doing things that I can do, myself and my help as far as cleaning up the front and backyard. But I don't know, maybe I should have the front yard done and the back within, I'd say maybe a month and a half. I can't work too long. I got health issues. I got COVID, and then that took what I had left as far as my energy. But as far as getting the porch done, I have to wait, until I hear something from the places, and I'm trying to get help to have it done. So I really don't know. I'd say I should be able to have everything done that I can get done with my help. I can't see it being more than a month and a half, maybe 2 months.
And this is regular maintenance that we're talking about in the front, in the back of the house?
There's vines growing up in the front. It looks bad. It says, front of my garage, there was bushes that grew out of control. I used to take care of the house. It was the best looking house on the street at one time. That's back when I was young. But it's sickening. It's depressing for me to look at the way it is.
Okay,
Right.
we'll go back to Mr. Vanover, see what he has to say on this.
Mr. Chairman, it does seem like there's quite a bit of just cleanup and cutting of the weeds and cutting the hedges and trimming them up or whatever. I just need a date.
Okay, on that end, we could give 2 months, but the problem is with the porch, or with the steps. We're not gonna know when that can get done, so I don't know if we can do a partial here or just do a total remand it back to you to take care of.
City would ask that you rule on the entirety of it, Mr. Chairman, or your discretion, whatever amount of time. As we said, we'll refer it to senior initiative. If if additional time is needed, the appellant can notify the board or work through the senior initiative.
Okay, so we can't set a time to get the other stuff done and then just senior initiative.
So, Mr. Chairman, we would ask we would not object to granting 90 days to come
Okay.
into compliance with everything. And then if more time is needed, then we can work with the senior initiative if he's
Okay.
eligible and if it's possible.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and grant you 90 days, which would be to July 12th, 2023 to abate the violations. Motion?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Bradley.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Dink.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maschke,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, you'll be notified within 2 weeks. Thank you.
You're free to go now if you want to.
Good luck to you.
What did he say 90 days?
July 12th,
July
2023.
12th.
Someone from Building and Housing and or the Department of Aging will be reaching out to you to
That's-
contact you with the information you provided to the board
Yes.
about a referral to the senior initiative, which tries to assist and get
Yes.
resources.
That's what I was gonna ask you,
Okay.
how that was gonna work. Okay.
Good luck to you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next docket, I believe has been withdrawn. Is that correct, Camilla?
Yes, docket
Okay.
A 15422 has been withdrawn.
Okay, A 15422 has been withdrawn and A 15522 has been withdrawn. So we'll be moving on to docket A 15622. And that's 3315 Dennison Avenue.
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is no permit. Issued September 16th of 2022. Appeal was received October 10th of 2022, requesting for time to abate the violations. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing. Patricia Aston Law. With the appellant or his or her attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Tamika Austin with Howard Hanna Property Management.
Okay, Ms. Aston, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and proceed with your plans.
Mr. Chairman, preliminarily, just for the record to Ms. Davis, do you have an authority letter, agency letter for this? Because I do not, and that is not filed in the deal.
Okay, do you have a letter, something stating that you are an authority in this and can proceed, Ms. Austin?
Yes.
uh,
I mean, I have a management agreement and power of attorney papers to work in his behalf. That's within our property management agreement.
Okay, that needs to be sent over to Camilla Davis.
Okay. You want me to email that now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I just need the
Thank you.
email. Oh, I think I have it. Did you send out the
I sent you the meeting links yesterday.
Okay. Yep, I have it. Yep. Do you want me to do that first before you want to talk about it, or?
You can do that, as long as we know that you're under oath, you're gonna do it, we can go ahead. and
I'll do it
proceed.
right after. Yep.
Okay, we'll proceed. Go ahead and let us know what your plans are.
Okay, well, the plan is, we have a contract with Matt's Home Improvement to satisfy everything on the city list, which is all these repairs from these pictures. We've already gave our deposit, and all the work that's noted on the report will be complete within 30 days.
Okay, Mr. Vanover,
Mr. Chairman, we don't object to 30 days.
okay, so we'll do a motion to allow 30 days. That would be May 12th, 2023, to abate all violations. So motion so in order.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Maskey,
Second.
second by Mr. Dink.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, the notice will be sent out within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next docket is A 20522, 3001 Liberty Avenue.
Library, Mr. Chairman.
What is it? Oh, library, I'm sorry. Library Avenue, yes. Okay,
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is fire damage. Issued on November 14th of 2022. Appeal was received December 9th of 2022, requesting for time to abate the violations. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston Law. With the appellant or his or her attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Janelle Bailey.
I'm not sure I heard that.
Could you come a little closer or speak into this mic? You have to speak up a little.
Janelle Bailey.
Sir, are you gonna talk also?
Yes.
Go ahead and state your name.
Ralph Vicario.
Okay, all those, is that it?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, all those that are going to be given any testimony here, solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and proceed. Let me know what the plans are.
Well, the house caught fire in November. It's already been gutted. The insulation's been put in, it's been rewired. The plumbing is already what they call roughed in. The drywall's been hung. We're in the middle of finishing the drywall as we speak. And we asked for 6 months, but we think we could get it done quicker, but it's better to ask for longer than shorter. But the outside's done except in the back. We still got a window to do in the back bottom corner. But the side where you see it's all white, that's already been gutted and replaced on the outside. So the outside's almost done, and that's about where we stand on the inside.
Okay, you've got, all your permits are in place and you've been getting
Yes.
inspections?
All this electrical and plumber said to call us when we're finished. We passed everything. And the building inspector said that he's kind of did every level, like the drywall, he had to make sure the screws was right, the insulation was put in right. So he doesn't come back until everything's finished now. When it's finished, then they all come back and then he'll come back and finish it.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Vanover.
Mr. Chair, preliminarily, is this a rental?
No, it's my house.
She lives there.
Okay, let her go ahead and.
No, it's my house I live in.
Okay, Mr.
So it's
Vanover.
homeowner occupied. Thank you, sir.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
yeah.
when are they gonna be finished?
They mentioned something about 6 months, but go ahead and let us know what that is. What was the date you were looking for finishing?
I just asked for 6 months to be safe. I think we can be done in 90 days, but I don't wanna say 90 days and it take a couple days longer.
Just because a lot of
Chairman.
that cap,
All the permits are in place and the work is progressing. We would object to 6 months, but we do not object to 90 days. And if it's within a couple of days after that 90-day period, they can work with the inspector, but we don't object to 90 days.
Okay, sounds good. We'll give 90 days to July 12th, 2023 to abate all violations. Motion is in order.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Bradley,
Second.
second by Mr. Maskey.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, notification will be sent out within 2 weeks. Thank you.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
If we're done earlier, do we have to call you or
You call your inspector.
the inspector? Okay.
They'll
Thank
walk you through. Tom, do they need a C of O?
No,
Did they told you?
they told us we do not, because
Okay,
she's
good.
living there.
Good,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next docket is A 20922, 4911 Tillman Avenue.
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is fire damage. Issued on November 22nd of 2022. Appeal received December 13th of 2022, requesting for time to abate the violations. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston Law. With the appellant or his or her attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Joseph Shalela, the owner of Shalela Investment.
Okay, Mr. Shalala, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and proceed and let us know what your plans are.
Sure. Back in November, we hired a company to replace a roof on this property, basically. And toward the end of the work, it caught on fire. It was their mistake, basically. It was extensive fire. So we had to work with their insurance company, which they delayed us a few months. About a month ago, basically, we hired another contractor full-time to fix the whole property. And they pulled all the permits, and they already started on the roof, as you see in the pictures. And basically, we're looking for extension for like 90 to 120 days to complete the work.
Okay, very good. Mr. Vanover.
Mr. Chairman, the permits are in place. We don't object to
Okay, go ahead.
the time needed.
Okay. So I think we mentioned 120 days. We can give you 120 days to August 12th, 2023 to abate all the violations. Motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Denk.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Maskey.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink.
Yes.
Okay, notification will be sent out within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a time extension, docket A 11022, 3508 West 35th Street.
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is rental registration, no permit, and interior and exterior maintenance. These violations was issued July 15th of 2022. The appeal was received July 15th of 2022. We originally heard this docket March 16th of 2022. Granted the appellant until, wait a minute, I'm sorry. We originally heard this docket March 16th of 2022. The board granted the owner until July 15th of 2022 to abate the violations. This present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing. Patricia Aston Law. With the appellant or his or her owner or representative, please state your name for the record.
My name is Ronald Gardner.
Okay, Mr. Gardner solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, go ahead and let us know what the plans are.
Okay, I already, if you can see, I got my certificate for my electrical is completed. My HVAC is completed. And what else is it? Only thing I had left was, you go to HVAC, can you see it?
That is not up.
Let me see. You see it now?
Okay,
So the problem that I'm having is with the tenants. Right now I'm dealing with housing court because a young lady has moved in 10 additional people in the residence. And each time I go to her and ask her because when I get contractors in there, they don't want to go in there because these people, I don't want to say they're homeless, but they look like they're homeless. Okay. So Children Family Services got involved. The last I was over there and spoke with the girl was the first of the month because I haven't received any rent for the last couple months. And the reason why I haven't taken her to eviction court is a conflict of interest with you guys. I don't want you guys or her to make it seem like I'm trying to put her out because I need to clear these violations. So my hands are real tied. I don't know which way to go to get in the house to take care of the things I need to do in the house with all these people in the house. Also, in addition to what I'm stating to you, I have she signs on the back of her receipt when she was paying each month that all these people will be gone by the end of each month. And this has been going on for the last 6-7 months or longer. So that's where we at. So once I get my house clear, I can go ahead and clear the other little things, the things that I have to do on the inside and out. But it's hard for me to do it when they're constantly just tearing the property down.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
to the appellant, be party here for Mr. Vanover, if I may. Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, did you pay your rental registration?
No, when is it due? In April?
Okay, so
Oh,
you should know, so your answer to the board is no. Mr. Chairman,
no,
to
ma'am.
the appellant, did you file an eviction action in housing court?
No, I issued her a 3-day notice.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this has been pending with this board since 2021. The violation notices go back to October of 2021. There are remedies. They are not homeless if they are living in his property without rental registration. He has remedies and he has failed to take those remedies. I anticipate Mr. Vanover is going to ask that you deny further time remand to building and housing. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vanover.
Well, Mr.
Can I say,
Chairman,
can I
preliminary,
say,
Mr.
go ahead.
the rental registration, excuse me, ma'am, but the rental registration just expired last month. I had a current rental registration. The new rental registration is to do on the beginning, I'm looking at it, beginning of March. So it's not like I didn't have a rental registration in place.
Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, I asked you if you got your rental registration, which was cited in 2021, and your answer to the board was no.
Well, I'm sorry, my answer
Okay,
is yes.
then that was
And
what
I'm
we
sorry
wanted
because,
to know.
yeah, I'm sorry because I misunderstood you and I didn't want to say anything that was untrue.
Okay, we're gonna go back to Mr. Vanover. Mr. Vanover, uninterrupted. Go ahead.
He's not.
It's not here. Did we lose him? Mr. Vanover, are you there? We see, Mr. Chairman, we see his icon.
His lights on?
I don't know.
Don't tell me nobody's home. Okay.
No, I'm sure he's home.
All right, let's,
I'm texting him now to see if we lost, connection.
yeah,
He's having.
he might need a minute to get that straightened out. Okay, so you have been told while we're waiting on Mr. Vanover that you need to do an eviction. That's what it sounds like, if the people are impeding you from completing the violations that need to be taken care of. And so that process is going to have to take place in order to proceed.
Mr. Chairman,
I have no problem.
he
Tom
did
back?
lose connection.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Tom did lose connections. He's trying to log back in now.
There he is.
Okay, all right.
Wait,
So that's part of what you're going to have to do, and in order to proceed, I'm going to wait for Tom to come back on.
I'm back, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
So, Mr. Chairman of the appellate, understanding the eviction issues and all of these other things, this is a rental property. When do you expect to be complete? Because the record does show that the electrical work has been completed and the HVAC work has been completed. When are you gonna finish everything else?
No, just to be fair with myself and fair to the court, I already have a current 3-day notice. I can go down there tomorrow and file the eviction. However, once I file the eviction, I have to wait on the process of them to, to do what they need to do. So fairly, I would like to come back before you guys, I would say within the next 30 days, to show you where I'm at in the eviction process, to let you know that I did do that part, and to give you, and I can bring you up to speed with the move out date. But with some of yeah, that's all I need is 30 days. And I would like to come back before the court and let you guys see exactly what I've done.
Mr. Chairman, this has been continued a few times. The city objects.
Mr. Vanover, are you with us?
I am, Mr. Chairman. I
Okay,
mean, this is an investment property, and sometimes this is the cost of doing business. So, I think that, I still don't hear a date for completion. So we would ask that
Can
you
give you-
remand it
I
back
can-
to the department.
I can give you a date of completion if that's what you want. I just don't want to lie to you. I can give you, if you can give me, I just go in there and work with them as they is. You can give me like 2 weeks to do what I need to do on the inside. That's not a thing. I just didn't want to subject my contractors with all the peoples in the house. But I can just ask for 2 weeks. I don't need no month. I don't need no 3 months or none of that, because the plumbing, the electrical and the HVAC, which was one of the bigger things to do when we had to open it up, is completed. The only thing we got to do now is just cosmetic.
what about the outside? I noticed that there's some foundation issues and stuff that you need to take care of.
There's no foundation. It basically just needs to be painted, and the porch needs to be closed up around the side, because they already built and put the new flooring down on the porch. It's just that the sides need to be closed up and painted. But like I said, if you just grant me 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, you'll see a big difference. I don't need no 3 months, no 6 months, none of that. Just grant me 2 weeks. I'll still start the eviction process, and I'll just go in there and start doing what I need to do.
Mr.
regardless of-
Chairman, based on the work that's been done, we don't object to 30 days to complete the violations
Very good.
with
That's what we do.
no further extensions.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will do the 30 days. That's May 12th, 2023. Motion is in order.
So move.
I moved by let's see, Mr. Bradley, second by Mr. Maskey.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, notice will be sent within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, second one is a time extension, again, housing docket A 15122, 1197 East 146th Street.
Application and fees are in order. This is a time extension request from a violation notice of no permit, unauthorized illegal use, and interior-exterior maintenance that was issued on March 3rd of 2022. The board heard this back on August 3rd of 2022 and was granted, the appellant was granted until October 7th of 2022 to abate all violations. Currently, the appellant submitted to the board yesterday an updated certificate of rental registration. And he also just emailed me the amended building permit that Inspector Derrick requested. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston Law. With the owner or the owner's attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Paul Rollins, Rollins.
Okay, Mr. Rollins, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead and let us know what the plans are.
Everything is in order for the most part. The inspector can do the inside inspection. The 28th of this month will be good for me. That'll be a Friday. And I just need some more time for the exterior. I got a whole lot of paint chips. I was gonna side the house, but if it meets the court's expectations and standards, I can just scrape it and prime it and paint it. And I also I fixed the loose shingles on the roof, but the wind came and knocked them off. So I got to get somebody to go back up there and do that. And other than that, that's all I really need for real. Everything is pretty much done.
Total time, how much time do you think you need to complete that?
Just to give me to July 7th to finish everything for the outside, but I'm sure I'll be done before then. And the inspector can come inside by the 28th probably of this month, 2 weeks or so.
Okay, Mr. Vanover.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we don't object to the 28th to complete the interior violations and July 7th to complete the exterior.
Okay, well then, we'll give you till the 28th of April 2023 to complete the, I think that's the interior, and to, let's say July 12th, that's 90 days, 2023 to abate all the violations. Motion so in order?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Dank, second by Mr. Maskey.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, you'll be notified within 2 weeks. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have reopened on housing docket A 20222, 11015 La Rose Avenue.
Application and fees are in order. Notice of violation is interior-exterior maintenance issued on November 10th of 2022. Appeal was received December 8th of 2022. This was originally scheduled on March 29th of 2023. At the time, the board motioned to deny and remand back to the Department of Building and Housing. The owner did contact the board and state that he was having technical issues and could not log in at the time for the reason of the reopening of this docket. Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston Law. With the appellant or his or her attorney or representative, please state your name for the record.
Dennis James.
Mr. James, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead and let us know what your plans are.
Okay, well, the exterior The exterior work is done. The inspector said he was going by there today. By the end of the day, he should have his have his paperwork updated. In the process now of trying to get inside the home, the tenant changed the locks. I left a 3-day thing telling him I needed to come in to upgrade the smoke detectors and put batteries in there, which they was already in there, and I don't understand what happened, but that's either here or there. But yes, that's basically what I got left to do, is to get in the inside. So the gutters is up, the roof is fixed, the paint chips is all that's fixed, painted, all that's done. Now I just need to get inside the house, and I'm having a hard time with the tenant getting in because I'm trying to go through the eviction, and I filed twice evictions, but apparently I did them wrong. First time I didn't give him enough days. The second time I was supposed to serve him on the 31st. So then I just seen him not too long ago when I was over there checking on the property. I tried to get in then. He talked about he was in a rush and he had to go. I told him to leave the door open and I'll, lock it. He wasn't going for it. So he pulled off in the midst of me talking to him. So I'm going back to file again at the end of this month. To put in a 3-day notice.
Okay, so how much time do you think you need to abate all the violations?
I say 2 months. Just to go through the eviction part, try to go through the eviction part, and just trying to get in the house. And if I can get in before then, I'll contact the inspector and let him know.
Okay, Mr. Vanover?
At this point, Mr. Chairman, we don't object to 60 days.
Okay, very good.
With no further extensions.
Okay, so 60 days with no further extensions, June 12th, 2023, motion is in order.
Move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Maskey.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, notice will be sent within 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, we have the adjudication order, building docket A 223-2201 West 3rd Street.
Application and fees are in order. This is a notice of an adjudication order issued by the Division of Fire. Oh, I'm sorry. Issued by the Department of Building and Housing to several of the OBC codes. Present for the appeal was this was issued on December 23rd, 2022. Appeal was received December 23rd of 2022. Get it together, Present for the hearing, Tom Vanover, Building and Housing, Patricia Aston Law. With the appellants or the representative of the appellants, please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Brown. I'm here on behalf of Buckeye Terminals. I also have co-counsel Nick Hudno here, as well as 3 representatives from Buckeye.
Okay, all
Just,
those.
Chairman, if they could state their names for the record, please.
Okay, all those giving testimony, state your names for the record.
Yes, Lloyd Herndon, Gregory Jacobaski, George Gailey, Gailey.
Okay, all right.
Jacobaski, Jakubowski.
Okay, that's everyone? Okay, I want you to all swear
Yes.
to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
We also have to swear, we have personnel here from the Division of Fire. And I forgot to mention Tom Vanover is also present for the hearing, and Patty Aston.
But I don't think
Okay. Anyone that you have there, solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Preliminarily, I'm gonna have them state their names for the record. Go ahead.
Lieutenant James Alexiak. Captain Dave Feldman. Lieutenant Thomas McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Preliminarily, this is an objection to the issuance of the underlying order, so the city has the first administrative burden to prove by preponderance of the evidence that it was issued correctly. We did file a response and serve to the other side in March of our written response to that. In addition, we are under the understanding that there will be a PowerPoint presentation provided to this board. We do object to portions of that. To any extent that it provides plans or matters not submitted to the city, we would object. As this board knows, we do not do plan review at the table for any of the regulated systems that have to come through the building department and or for the fire protection systems to the Fire Prevention Bureau. Those should be made and must be made to the administrative department first before this board can rule on that, because we have to review them. The city has to look at them for those systems. To any extent that this cites to, provides information about, or references anything outside of Ohio jurisdiction, we object. It is irrelevant. It does not matter to the extent that this board has no authority over those other states, and those other states' laws do not have any authority over any of the matters regulated by the city of Cleveland and or the Ohio Building Code, the Ohio Fire Code, the Cleveland Codified Ordinances, et cetera, and Ohio Administrative Code. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the city submits and it will provide certain information and evidence testimony through the fire department as well as Mr. Vanover that the city is not attempting or in any way regulating the tank farm. There will be presented to this board matters from the Ohio Board of Building Standards regarding the lack of the OBC regulations to tank farms. This is not what the city is doing. These are references to the regulated systems, the fire protection systems at this property. To any extent that those systems are regulated, we have the authority and should be for the protection of the health, safety, welfare of the public. There was one other thing I was going to say, and it went out of my mind. Since we do have the first preliminary burden, we are going to ask that Mr. Vanover and the fire personnel give the history, background, and how we came to this and why this was issued. We did meet with the appellants, I think, at the end of January to try to resolve matters. We do state that this again is it clearly has an occupancy. It is clearly regulated. And we are not trying to regulate, that's what I remember. We are not trying to regulate the tank farm, similar to, you saw Zenith a few months ago. We were not regulating the tank, it was the dike. It was the regulated system at the property. That is similar to what is an issue here. This is a fire protection system that is governed, and we believe it. After you will hear everything, we would ask that you uphold the order as properly issued. There has been no request for a variance to this board, Mr. Chairman. The city has not received anything, has not been filed with this board. So I will defer to Mr. Vanover, since it is his order in through the fire department, their regulated fire protection system, as to that question. But we do believe that everything that's presented will demonstrate that it was issued correctly. Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask
Ms. Aston, also in this this adjudication order, it does say the appellant is requesting for a variance.
I have the appeal statement filed with this board December 23rd, 2023. At the conclusion on page 5 of the appeal statement, for the foregoing reasons, appellant respectfully requests this board overturn the decision of the city and approve appellant's plan for permits. Alternatively, appellant requests this board individually evaluates each of the 7 reasons for disapproval and determine the validity of each to provide appellant with clear instructions for altering their plans and permit applications so that it may be granted. If you're if you believe that's asking for a variance, I would respectfully disagree. I think they're asking for you to state what they have to do. And usually they would say, we want a variance and here is what we propose to do. So I don't read that as a variance. I read that as, hey, board, you tell us what to do then. But we can most certainly ask them. It's their appeal.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Are you requesting a variance?
Yes, so our appeal, the crux of our appeal is that we are asking, or we are arguing both that the codes do not apply, but in the instance that this board does find that they apply, then we are requesting a variance. So the point here is that we have issues with, we are objecting to really 3 out of the 7 issues that they have here. And I don't know if that's what we want to get into right now, but the point that we're making is that we're willing to resubmit this permit, but without the requirements of 3 of those 7 issues.
Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, which 3 are you objecting to then? Because that was not my understanding.
Yeah, so specifically, our biggest issues here are with issue 1, 3, and 6. 2 and 4 are water flow test data. You know, we're willing to provide that before we resubmit permit. Issue 5 is a clarification on means of supervision, which we believe was actually already in there, and we discussed that in the January meeting that maybe it was overlooked. We do have the site from our plans that we originally submitted. And then issue 7 is the location of the fire department connection, which we're willing to work with fire on to figure out. I mean, that's kind of as simple as kind of pointing to where on the map you want us to put it and us putting it there, more or less. So issues 1, 3, and 6. Issue 1 is the manual system, which was not approved. Issue 3 is the single combined yard hydrant system. And issue 6 was the unidentified post indicator valve.
So there's just 3 issues then that you're addressing here out of all this?
That's what it sounds like to me. That's what I'm hearing. Is that true, Brendan?
Can you repeat that, Mr. Chairman?
Well, look, I mean, just in the sake of explanation and time, and so that it's understood by fire and the city exactly, you know, what we're looking at that you're not in agreement with, that we need to discuss. That's where we need to go to.
Right, issues, so specifically in the adjudication order, we're pointing to issues 1, 3, and 6. Okay. Is where we have our differences.
Okay, everything else you'll be in compliance.
Everything else we are willing to be in compliance next time we follow up.
And if I'm hearing correctly, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity before we proceed with our evidence and testimony, so you're only asking for items number 1, number 3, and number 6 for us to proceed on. And should the board uphold that, you're also asking for a variance. Is that correct, Brandon?
Well, should the board uphold? I mean, it depends on the grounds that the board's upholding. If they uphold on the grounds that the codes do not apply, then we don't need a variance on the codes because they don't apply. But if they are holding that the codes do apply, then we have also prepared arguments on why there should be a variance of the specific requirements that were placed upon us based on those codes.
I think we're saying the same.
Okay.
Okay. If we are, I apologize. I just want to make sure.
What I mean by upholding it would be upholding the order as issued correctly. I just want to be clear what we're proceeding on for the board so that we don't need to give them testimony about things that you're okay with. It's just number 1, number 3, number 6.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, given that, I will defer to Mr. Vanover and to fire department. I will say, as it relates to number 6, that is a Cleveland Codified Ordinance 389.28 that requires that. I addressed that in the board's in the city's response, but I will now defer to Mr. Vanover and the fire department on how they want to proceed and give you their narrative. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vanover, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, I will begin by arguing that, for clarification, that this is a use and it is an occupancy that is covered under the Ohio Building Code and under the jurisdiction of the Department of Building and Housing. As you know, there are many instances and situations where the fact that there are no occupants does not mean it's not an occupancy. We are clear on what we regulate and what we do not regulate. And the use and occupancy of structures and facilities are within our jurisdiction and shall be regulated accordingly. There are exceptions for process equipment and for specific components of process equipment. However, the use and occupancy of structures are regulated under the Ohio Building Code. We believe this facility falls under that. And while specific components may be outside the jurisdiction, the fire suppression system required, which is really what we're talking about, for this facility as a use and as an occupancy are regulated under the Ohio Building Code and with its references to the Ohio Fire Code. I will allow the members of the Division of Fire to opine specifically on the requirements, but our argument is that this is a use and occupancy and it is regulated under the Ohio Building Code.
Just I guess from the Buckeye Terminals, is there any objection to what Mr. Vanover just said?
Well, we object that that Buckeye's site is an occupancy. It is our argument that we are in fact an above ground tank farm, which is not governed under the OEC. And definitely not under the provisions that were stated in the adjudication order.
Okay, so you object to what he's saying as far as occupancy. All right, let's proceed on back to fire, back to Mr. Vanover.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vanover, do you want to have the board rule on that, or do you want to have them hear everything first?
Wouldn't.
We lose.
And if the board's gonna rule, we do have testimony on our end as well that we'd like to
I think we
offer
lost.
on this issue.
He's muted. He's muted. I still see him there, but he's muted.
Apologies. No, I do wish to continue with the testimony and then the board can rule.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vanover, or for fire to go ahead and proceed.
Lieutenant Alexiak speaking for Cleveland Fire Department. Yeah, with regards to item 1, we're talking about Ohio Building Code section 901 and the Ohio, which takes us to the Ohio Fire Code section 901 4.4. The description in the adjudication, which I wrote, identifies a manually activated suppression system. And I believe this is stated fairly clear. Due to the CFD's, Cleveland Fire Department's accessibility to this location, the nature of the occupancy, and the proximity on the same or adjoining property, height and character of liquids to be stored, degree of private fire protection to be provided, which is none, and facilities of the fire department to cope with flammable liquid fires, which we do not have, a manual system is not approved. That's our rationale behind it. The code that I cited out of the Ohio Fire Code 901 4.4 states, in occupancies of a hazardous nature, where special hazards exist, in addition to the normal hazards of the occupancy, or where the fire code official determines that access for fire apparatus is unduly difficult, the fire code official shall have the authority to require additional safeguards. Such safeguards include, but shall not be limited to the following: automatic fire detection systems, fire alarm systems, automatic fire extinguishing systems, standpipe systems, or portable or fixed extinguishers, and it goes on. The Division of Fire has no issue with the installation of the foam system. Matter of fact, we're waiting for it. It can't happen soon enough. The issue that we have here is that they're wanting to install a manually activated system where there is a long response time. We are saying no, due to the nature of the occupancy, the difficulty of getting to it, a lift bridge which inhibits us on our response times, that this needs to be an automatic system. And that's our case to this, or to this point.
Okay, it's a matter of getting there quickly for whatever the situation may be. And I guess I got a question here, just so for the board, is that what is actually being stored here?
6 million gallons.
So we have, what is it, Tom?
6 million.
State your name and then go ahead and.
Go ahead, Tom.
They are permitted to store 6 million gallons of gasoline.
Okay.
Abutted
And-
straight next to.
And where does the gas come from? How does it get to the storage system?
We can speak to that, Chairman, if you'd like. George, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So this gasoline is brought into the facility from our Bradley Road facility over on in Cleveland. So pipeline in, and then at the facility we take it out of tankage onto trucks, which then drop it off at the local gas stations or wherever for the end users would use the gasoline.
Okay, so it's piped into this facility and then it's trucked out of this facility?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so the board has an understanding of what's here. And we're right now just addressing this automatic versus a manual notification system by phone. Is that correct?
Lieutenant Alexiak from Cleveland Fire. We're discussing not a notification system, but the suppression system itself. We believe, actually, we don't believe we are requiring that to be an automatic system unless a fire protection engineer is able to show us, give documentation as to why this cannot occur. The biggest issue with this has been the response times. With a manual activated system for this occupancy, if there is a fire or catastrophic incident, the best response times that we had, and the appellant can correct me on this if I'm wrong, I was told somewhere between 20 to 45 minutes or 20 to 40 minutes before a responsible party could be on site to actuate the system. Cleveland Fire finds that unacceptable. There needs to be an automated, automatic suppression system. If that is simply not possible due to engineering standards, then there needs to be personnel on site 24/7 that is able to actuate that manual system. This is what we're arguing for.
Okay. All right, I understand. Now, this is a suppression system. And there is a suppression system that's there already currently, correct?
Jim?
I'm sorry, what's that, Mr. Chairman?
There is a suppression system that is in place currently, right?
That's the problem. It's an impaired system. This has been dragging out for more than a year. And this stems from my original abatement order from the Division of Fire in 2021, from which they installed a heat detection and fire alarm system as an emergency measure to get something down there protecting the property, or at least there would be notification. This was to buy them time to get an appropriate system design submitted, which they've done to the design and the submittal. There's no argument there. The issue is now whether, to point one, whether or not this is a manual automated system. Fire has cited the fire code, clearly stating why. The reduced response time, the difficulty of getting to the system, the amount of fuel and storage at the facility, as well as the 14+ million gallons of fuel that abuts to this property. You know, this is on the river, Cuyahoga River, you know, feeding freshwater body, you know, the Great Lakes. We cannot afford to have a facility where the accepted planned response is a 20 to 40 minute delay before suppression can happen. That is not acceptable to the Division of Fire.
Now, if you had an automatic, you're looking for an automated suppression system that goes immediately. Is that correct?
We're looking for an automated system design. And if engineering states that that's not feasible, then we need a facility that is manned 24/7, a responsible party trained on the suppression system that can actuate the system in the event of an emergency.
Okay. Doesn't necessarily have to be fire, but somebody that is knowledgeable and trained in when to use it and or how to. Okay. All right. So just let's get a response from that as far as not being able to engineer it to be automatic. Can we get a response from Buckeye on that?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have Greg here respond to some of the points that were just made. Greg, can you specifically speak on the issues of response time and as well as the difficulty for the fire department to get to the system and be able to effectively use it?
Yes, certainly. And Mr. Chair, I am a licensed Ohio fire protection engineer, as well as licensed in 6 other states, as well as being in the fire service for 40 years, including being a chief officer. It's Gregory Jakubowski, JAKUBOWSKI. I'm Buckeye's fire protection engineer. So the system that we have now is a manual operated system. It was installed, we believe, in 1957 or 1958. That system has about 8 steps needed to activate the system and apply foam to the correct tank. It is a manually operated system. As has been mentioned by the city, and we're in full agreement, we put in an automatic detection system, notification system that will notify the city fire department of a fire in the tanks. And the response could be from our personnel, or the response could be from the city. The system that we are proposing is a manual system, but instead of taking multiple steps to activate it, it simply will be the opening of a single valve to the appropriate tank that's on fire. That could be done by our personnel. That could be done by the city personnel following walkthroughs and training from the city. As far as the bridge being open, we're a little unsure what the issue is with that, with multiple other interstates that cross the river that do not have opening bridges and multiple city fire stations within 2 to 3 miles that are on the other side of the bridge to that facility. So we believe that the response time can be quite adequate in a few minutes. And it's really, really important to us as a business here in Cleveland to not have a false activation of the system. If we were to have a false activation of the phone system that we proposed from an automatic alarm system, we could literally cause millions of dollars of damage to the product. It would essentially contaminate all the product in the tank. That could cause multiple other failures, including backups of fuel to the entire area. And it would require us months of work to filter and strain out the fuel in the tank. We are concerned, as is the fire service across the country, of false alarms. We know in 2022 that the city responded, almost 10% of their calls were for false fire alarms, and less than 3% of their calls were for actual fires. Those statistics are common across the United States, and we see the same issues at our other facilities. So we have about 135 fuel facilities across the United States, and we have none of them, we have over 1,800 fuel tanks. Not one of those tanks has an automatic suppression system in it for the reasons that I just mentioned.
Okay. So you use a manual system, but it is a much advanced one over what you had back in the 50s. Rather than multiple steps, you're down to one step, and somebody makes a decision. Okay, it's time to turn the valve. We don't have a choice here, and so then that decision is made and it's done. I get that. Okay, so you got reason to believe that if there was for some reason in an automated system that it was a false alarm and you would spoil the load by that thing going off. Okay, I get that. Anybody have any questions from the board?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the city does have a question. I did not hear any time that they are stating their people can respond to.
Okay, fair question.
I'd also like to know where he got the 2022 data. If it was from the city itself, I'd ask them to provide that to the board for his testimony. But
we can provide that information.
Okay, but I'd like to.
The 20.
More importantly, I'd like to know what the.
Yeah, the 2022 data was from the Cleveland Fire Department Chief's report that's posted online on the Cleveland City website.
Thank you. If you could submit that, Brandon, to the board and copy me, that'd be great, just to verify. Sure. But most importantly, Mr. Chairman, Lieutenant Alexiak testified to the response time, but I did not hear testimony. The testimony I heard was that they believe it's adequate, but I did not hear a specific response time that they anticipate for them to respond. It sounds like they're asking that the Cleveland Fire Department is their manual response.
Well, yes, in part. So, George, do you want to speak to the potential response time of any Buckeye employees?
Yeah, we've got probably 3 employees that live within 15, 20 minutes of this facility. So, in the event of a fire, if we needed to get somebody there, we would call one of these, 3 guys. We have one guy that's on call each day, each night, and they rotate for the weekend coverage. So, that operator is going to be in the area. In addition to that, we have, an additional 30, personnel that are in my team that could respond anywhere from 20 minutes up to an hour and a half, depending on where they were at.
And further, further going back to Greg's point as well, this system was designed so that even if one of those 3 people cannot make it, I mean, this is a system that should be easily operable, operated by Cleveland Division of Fire, and of course, Buckeye is more than willing to, of course, have them out and show them. But how this system works. I mean, so one of the slides that I sent over shows kind of a mock-up of what the system would look like and the valves. It's slide 13 to 14. I don't know if we can pull those up.
And we would object to that being that it's not is that what was submitted to the city, or that was not yet submitted?
That was on the plans, I believe, that were submitted originally.
Okay. And before we.
A general.
It was depicted as a plan view originally on the plans. The image itself was not on the plans.
Okay.
So this particular image was not on the plan.
The city's, and I'm sure the board will grant you the testimony to provide, I make my objection for the record. Oh, we're flipping out over it. And I'm sure the board will grant you the time to go through your PowerPoint because you have that right. But the city also submits, Mr. Chairman, the codes are not just for fires. They are for other emergencies as well. But again, this comes back to it appears that they want the city to be their response, not the actual system itself. And take that for what it's worth, but and I would state that any false activations of the city, any false activations of the system, and maybe they could correct me if I'm wrong. That sounds like that's a design problem, that's a them problem, not a city problem. But it is most importantly, most importantly, this is just. It's not just fires. There are other emergencies that happen that the fire, the OBC and the OFC and the codes provide for. Thank you.
Okay, so this suppression system is manual, it's not automatic. And they stated why they felt that it needs to be manual, okay? Because of false alarming, whatnot. We got that part. So it is manual. The question is, the response is that their people, one of the three, would be probably the first respondent, of course, along with fire coming in. Fire saying it could be up to 40 minutes possibly. They're saying they can have a guy there in 15. So to be able to manually switch the valve, that's my understanding so far. If that's not correct, then please correct me.
Lieutenant Alexiak from Cleveland Fire, Mr. Gallagher. Yeah, the Division of Fire is saying we will have there is undue difficult access to the facility. Greg, I believe the fire protection engineer, just testified that, yeah, the Division of Fire with some training can be part of the response. The Division of Fire is saying we are not NFPA 600 Industrial Fire Brigade trained. We are structural firefighters. We are not trained in the operation of flammable and combustible liquid fires at storage tank facilities. All right, their system is designed for that. Therefore, we are requiring this is what we're arguing. We're saying this needs to be an automated system. What I have not heard either is also with regards to Greg's statement on the bridge, he doesn't see why there's an issue. Well, the city is telling him why there is an issue, okay? That very bridge, had periods of time in excess of a year where it was out of service. We can't control when there's going to be shipping going through and the bridge is going to be up. And then we add to even further delayed response time at their facility. Again, I would add to what Prosecutor McGinney stated in terms of false activation or their concern over that. It is a valid concern. However, I would say, again, is that not a design issue? And are they saying that an automated system simply is not possible? I mean, if they're saying that, I would ask they state that on the record. There is not an automated design system that they can design. The fact that they don't have an automated suppression system in other facilities is not an answer. We're asking them as the design professionals, is this that you cannot design a sound automated design system? If so, and you're going to move through with this, you need a 24/7 manned facility. You need someone there. I mean, we're talking about a facility that had a history with a fire brigade. That was a trained fire brigade, okay? That's been gone for a long time. This manual system that they have down there now is impaired. It's been impaired.
Okay, so there needs to be somebody on site 24/7 that knows the system and can activate the system. And then that would almost, and we'll get an answer to your other question too, as far as is it impossible to have? And I would say no. I would say they could have an automated system. I think they're choosing not to for the reasons that they stated, that it could be a false. They'd rather have somebody manually do it rather than be automated. Okay, that's what it sounds like to me. But if that's the case, then the requirement is to have someone that understands this system and that can activate it manually on site on that little island, basically 24/7. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Gallagher.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and Buckeye Terminals answer the question as far as the automated system is concerned.
Yeah, so we are not saying that we cannot create an automatic system. We are saying that it is both not necessary given the location of the fire department. The city just stated that if the bridge is up, that it seems like they're stating that if the bridge is up that they can't get to the facility, but there are multiple access points to this facility, and there are multiple firehouses within minutes of this facility. In addition, it's also dangerous to have an automatic system. We're not just saying that we can't do it. We're saying that there are legitimate reasons why it should not be done, right? And that's why we brought up other facilities. Obviously, in other places, you guys don't have jurisdiction over that. We're not saying that you do, but we are saying that this is not a safe way to have a suppression system. Additionally, we also want to reiterate that the code section that's being applied here is for occupancies, which is what we're not. We're an above ground tank farm. We have a specific ruling from the building, the Board of Building Standards stating that facilities that basically mirror ours are not governed by the Ohio Building Code, and that we are instead an above ground tank farm. So we want to reiterate that as well, in addition to the points that we've already made about why the automatic system is just unsafe.
Okay, I hear that. What is your objection to having that one trained person on site 24/7? One person.
Well, our main objection to that is that it's one, unnecessary, and that given the system that is in place, the fire brigade, not the fire brigade, the fire department can respond quickly enough to fight this fire. Having someone there doesn't really change anything. Do any of you have anything to add to that?
No, I would say number one, go ahead. Number one, that the Industrial Fire Brigade set NFPA 600 that Lieutenant Alexiak mentioned is a standard for if you have a fire brigade. It does not require a fire brigade. Firefighters trained to firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 by NFPA standards also require that you have a knowledge of fire protection systems and how to operate it. Our manual system requires one valve to open. Essentially, it will require someone to get there, verify that I see smoke coming out of the tank or fire coming out of the tank, and it would be double verified by the heat detection system going off. And then they simply open a valve and say, yes, there is a fire there. This site has been around since the 1940s. It has changed very, very significantly since the 60s when there was rail car access there. There were thousands of drums on site. There were 34 additional tanks that have since been removed since the time that there was supposedly, and we have no evidence that there was a fire brigade there, nor was a fire brigade required. And so we've actually, the system has, the facility has lessened in hazard over the years. And we're really, really trying to modernize the system and work, we've tried to collaborate on this and get input from the system, but we appear just to be stuck on this issue of active versus manual. And it's just not safe for the system to be active. It depends on then a failure of a piece of mechanical equipment. It's not a design failure, but alarm systems fail thousands of times in the city of Cleveland every day, or every year rather. And their own statistics show that, and we see that across the board. So that's why we're concerned about this going off.
Okay. So I think what you need to do is to get your all the information over to the city as far as why it's dangerous to have an automatic system. Okay. Because it seems like you don't have them anywhere, and so you have to convince them that it is dangerous.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Fire would like to address, if we can.
Sure.
We have,
Say your name.
in the city of Lieutenant McGowan, in the city of Cleveland, we have tens of thousands of automatic detection systems that do have false alarms. We also have hundreds automatic foam systems in the city of Cleveland. We do not have false activation of the foam system every day. I don't recall in the last 3 years when I've been a suppression inspector that we ever had a false activation of a foam suppression system. Not once in the 3 years.
Are any of those automatic foam systems at tank farms?
No, sir.
Airport cleaners.
Mr. Chairman, to the appellant,
Yes.
is it possible to put in a supervised automatic system, whether that's double interlock or supervised with closed circuit television or some other manual interjection that's more automatic and has less of a time delay than what we've been talking about?
Excellent question.
It's not common, no. I mean, we've got open head devices here, so the foam chambers are open end devices that are on the tanks, the actual discharge devices. So, no, it's the most common type system for these types of tanks are what's called a semi-fixed system, which for those that aren't familiar with that, it's just a dry standpipe. Essentially, how we've arrived at this point is through Chapter 57 of the Ohio Fire Code, which lays out the requirements for when tanks are required to have foam fire protection. And then the next section below that indicates the foam fire protection shall comply with NFPA 11. And then you go to NFPA 11, section 4.8, it indicates the types of systems that you can have: manual, automatic. And then the section below that lays out once again that the system can be manual or automatic. So what we proposed is, under traditional manners, compliant with the adopted codes. This is the same system that we have done in other locations in Ohio, other locations within the United States.
Okay, that's what you had proposed here.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Jim.
Chairman Gallagher, can Lieutenant Alexiak Fire speak?
Yes.
Lieutenant Alexiak, Cleveland Fire, there's certainly no argument, and I think that's a clear assessment with regards to NFPA 11. They can certainly have, it gives them options of the different types of systems they can have. You know, it states clearly, you can have a manual or an automatic. That's why I specifically referred to Ohio Fire Code 9014.4, because in occupancies of hazardous nature, where special hazards exist, in addition to the normal hazards of the occupancy, or where the fire code official determines that access for fire apparatus is unduly difficult, fire code officials have the authority to require additional safeguards. This is the additional safeguard we're requiring. We're saying that we're requiring it to be automatic. That is our position. Now, if they cannot design an automatic system that will not have, or they fear will have false activation, I would say it's a design issue.
Or they could get a variance. Or they could get a variance.
They can submit for a variance to that.
Okay, I'm hearing you. Okay.
Can we respond to that, particularly the use of 901.4.4 here? LB, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so I completely agree with what was stated on 901.4.4 in regards to what it allows to be done. Where our disagreement is that we believe it's being used out of context. That's one of the reasons why we have made an occupancy a big part of our testimony here, to show that the tanks themselves are not occupancies. There are occupancies within the facility. The buildings are occupancies. So we don't have any disagreement there, but the tanks themselves are considered outdoor storage. They're governed by Chapter 50 of the Ohio Fire Code and Chapter 57. So there's no occupancy present. So that's our first disagreement with the use of 901.4.4. Occupancy stated throughout, there's not an occupancy there, so we believe that it should not be utilized. Our second disagreement is that we believe that it's still being used, even if this was an occupancy, which we do not believe it is, that the section's being used inappropriately once again, because the intention of the section is to address hazards that are not adequately addressed within the fire code. Tank fire protection is adequately addressed. Chapter 57 is very clear on when tank fire protection is required, and if it's required, what it needs to comply to. That gets you to NFPA 11, which is very clear once again on the types of systems that you can have. So that's our disagreement to 901.4.4.
Okay. All right, so we could probably move on to one of the other points.
Move on to the next one. So, Mr. Chairman, the next one would be number 3 for fire to respond to. Go ahead.
Lieutenant Alexiak, Cleveland Fire. So issue it. Here is item 3 on the adjudication order, B22022047-1. I have cited Ohio Building Code 901.2, which again takes us to Ohio Fire Code 901.4.4. Stated on this is the plans identify a private underground fire service main for combined yard hydrant system and suppression system versus installing a fire service main for the suppression system independent of the yard hydrant system. A single point of valve failure can render both yard system and suppression to be compromised. Downtime or repairs to service main valves cannot occur without taking the facility out of service. The occupancy is of a hazardous nature, and the access for fire apparatus is not reliable due to adjacent vertical lift bridge operations and closures. Please revise plans to include a private service main that is independent of the yard hydrant system. Revise and resubmit. So the issue at stake here is their design incorporates a single fire service main supplying both the yard hydrant system as well as the suppression system. I was requiring them as the examiner, due to the limited access and hazardous nature of the facility, to provide a fire service main for the yard hydrant system, which are the hydrants on the facility, and a separate fire main for the suppression system. In essence, a system of redundancy, so that in the event we have a compromised fire main for the suppression, we still have the yard hydrant system, and vice versa.
Okay, and you're citing the extra hazard by code?
I cited 901.4.4 actually. Again, due to the hazardous nature of the occupancy and the access for fire apparatus personnel, again, the vertical lift bridge is an unreliable access point.
Okay, and they have stated that there are other access points to this. Is that correct?
They are, but
Yes,
they're
they
limited
are.
because it restricts us to one side of the river.
Okay.
There are multiple access points and also firehouses on both sides of the river that are within minutes of the location. So this argument of limited access, we're not really sure how that's justified here. Yet we understand that the most immediate access point is through the river, but there are other access points as well that can be easily accessed from the same side of the river. Additionally, we just want to point out that
If
the
appellant could
city's issue here-
specify that argument, because I'm willing to have fire testify which house, where it's located. If he has specifics, please let us know. Because we're more than happy to take that information, but fire is best qualified to state what its response and from where it would come.
Lieutenant Alexiak.
Okay,
Fire, if council could illuminate us, please let us know which firehouses will be responding when the lift bridge is up. We'd be happy to hear it.
Which firehouses will respond
Well-
when the bridge is up?
Well, from our
Let us know. I mean, we're all here.
Let him talk. Let him talk.
Yeah, sure. And so we have a list of 26 houses that are within, or stations that are within 20 minutes, most of which are under 10 minutes, some of which are under 5-minute response time. The ones being under 5, and this is again based on what may be crude metrics as far as distance and time, but we have stations 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 13, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 28, 30, 31, 33, 36, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43 that are all based on, again, probably crude calculations, but within 20 minutes of this facility and are located in various locations that are not all just on the other side of the river. And again, given the simplicity of our system.
This is Captain Talbot with Fire
And
Department.
so,
Sir,
Hang on,
sir,
hang on.
I have a quick question, real quick question to what you just said. Okay, you basically named almost every station in the city, okay? But you're telling us that their stations are gonna respond. We wanna know which ones are you telling us are gonna respond directly to that fire? Because most of the ones that you just announced wouldn't be on that box assignment if that would be the case. So if we're listening to what you say, which one is gonna respond? If the is up, who's coming next? That's what you're telling us, that they're gonna be right there, so which one?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think you get the point of what the city is stating there.
I don't understand. I'm not sure I understand the premise of the question, because it is the job of the CFD to respond to these issues.
Well, okay,
So if there's another station. No, go ahead.
Okay, do you know the location of engine 6?
I don't want to go down this hypothetical road. That's not the point. Mr. Chairman, the point is, fire department is in the best position to determine, based upon location, the hazard, the review of this, the time response, what is and is not reasonable, and to state that every firehouse in the city of Cleveland is on the basis. I pray we never have to have that happen. But that's the point of this, is that the fire department. Okay, then I won't continue if you won't let me. Thank you. Can we move on to the next?
Yes.
Because they do have, Mr. Chairman, in fairness, they do have a PowerPoint to present to this board that we've objected to, but we'd like to make the point, and so if we could move on, do you have anything else to say on number 3?
Don't.
If we can move on to number 6, which cites to the code section, so that the city can finish and be completed, so that fire can finish testimony, and then we anticipate Mr. Vanover to finish testimony about the ongoing request for this board to rule on the occupancy, and then we'd like to hear from their presentation. Thank you. If you could read number 6, go for it.
Lieutenant Alexiak with Cleveland Fire. Item number 6 on the adjudication order, Cleveland Codified Ordinance 389.28. Plans do not identify a post indicator valve for the yard hydrant system or the suppression system. Please include in your design, revise and resubmit.
And we also addressed that in the brief that was filed, Mr. Chairman. The PIV is required.
And we're talking about, let's see, this is a.
I had to learn about this. Post indicator valve. I learned a new term.
Okay, now do you know what it does?
I did when I wrote this, but I'll defer to the experts since they're in the room, because
So we're missing.
much like the math, I don't have to
missing a
do that.
valve.
Tommy, you want to go ahead?
So are
Talk
we
about the
missing a
PIV.
valve somewhere? What is this valve for?
This valve is.
So we have a,
Wait,
I'm sorry. We have
Isn't
a
that-
gate valve present now with a roadway box.
Yeah, that's not
The post
allowed.
indicator valve is just an extension.
Right. So provide us with that as required.
Yeah, so our disagreement within this code section revolves around the section that was cited for the requirement of a post indicator valve. That section specifically addresses the requirement for a post indicator valve for every sprinkler system. We do not have a sprinkler system. That's coming from the Cleveland Municipal Code. Sprinkler system is addressed. It is defined within the Cleveland Municipal Code. And that is not what we have in place. So that's why we do not have a post indicator valve.
Okay. All right. so
Mr. Chairman, the city disagrees with that, but That's an interesting read, but that's not what we believe the city's code said, but this board can most certainly rule on that. And if,
I can read the
fire.
code, ma'am.
May I continue? May I didn't interrupt you. If, Lieutenant McGowan
I
could address that.
Okay,
If
we
Lieutenant
just,
McGowan can
I apologize.
specifically, oh my God, for the third time, if Lieutenant McGowan could address that specifically as to why it is required, Mr. Chairman, we are more than happy then to move to Mr. Vanover for final statements as to occupancy and ask for this to be upheld. This board has every right to grant variances if it so believes that that's required. Tom, can you give a statement on that? Thank you.
Section 389 in the Cleveland Codified Ordinance addresses fire extinguishing systems. While sprinkler systems are one of those, so are yard hydrant systems and automatic or manual fire suppression systems. The post indicator valve is needed in the city of Cleveland and everywhere else where it snows or has big trucks carrying thousands of gallons of fuel through the property, so that if the road box curb valve, the valve that they have on their fire main is covered, that we can see it, we can shut it off, we can isolate systems like this one from the fire pump or the fire main. This is also interrelated with, what was that, item 3?
Yeah.
Where we would prefer or require them to have a separate yard hydrant system and a separate fire main directly to the pump. If we cannot isolate them, one point of failure fails the whole system. So also NFPA 24 gives the authority to the authority having jurisdiction to require an indicating valve on a fire service main.
okay, so it's a safety item, that in case something fails, the system can continue. And that's, I guess, what the post indicator valve does. It allows for the system to keep working when something fails in between. Is that a fair statement?
Lieutenant Alexiak, Cleveland Fire. It's an indicating valve. So it's what they have designed is there's a valve in the road box in the ground, underground, which can isolate the water supply. The post indicating valves are required in Cleveland because it's an indicating valve that comes up out of the ground where one can clearly see and identify the valve in order to control the water supply. You know, in Northeast Ohio, with snow, ice, and everything else, we require these for quite some time. And we've got well over 75 years experience that justifying use of post indicating valves specifically for underground fire service mains. We need to see where these valves are so we can get to them. If we have to isolate something or just on annual inspections to ensure that they're open and water is being supplied to these suppression systems.
Okay. Are these lines that are on this site, are they all underground?
The fire service main lines are, yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
those would
Mr.
be-
Chairman. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to wrap up and say, if with no other questions from the board, if Mr. Vanover would address in total about the appropriateness and the fact that the city believes the adjudication order was issued correctly, given the proviso that we were told we are not going to address the other 4 items.
Right. Okay, Mr. Vanover.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to initially, the reluctance to put in a post indicator valve is something I don't understand. It's common throughout the city. It basically is a fail-safe so that the fire service understands that this valve is open and operating. And so I'm not clear on the reluctance, especially since this appellant clearly expects the City of Cleveland Division of Fire to respond to an event at their facility. And then at that point, make a decision on whether or not to open valves to suppress their fire. So that's, I don't understand the reluctance to put that post indicator valve in. There's been a lot of discussion on whether or not this is an occupancy and therefore whether or not it needs to comply with the section 9014.4 for the automatic suppression system. The Ohio Fire Code clearly defines this as a H3 occupancy. And it is an occupancy under the fire code. Our determination is as such under high hazard H3, buildings or structures containing materials that readily support combustion or that pose a physical hazard shall be classified as group H3. Such materials shall include, but not limited to, the following: class 1, 2, or 3A flammable or combustible liquids that are used or stored in normally closed containers or systems pressurized at 15 PSI. And then it continues in to the other, classifications. This is an occupancy. That's how the code defines what is in the place. I think that I don't agree that with the argument that this is not an occupancy because it's not a building that houses process equipment. And I don't think that argument has been made. It's flammable liquid. The code requires it to be protected. It requires it to be automatically protected. The fire service has the authority to require these things based on its ability to fight the fire. I think that the presumption that you can name every firehouse in the city and say they should be able to get there, the code requires it to be an automatic system. We all understand that there could be false alarms and that could ruin product. I agree with Mr. Dank that there could be a redundancy in the system to prevent false alarms, but this is an occupancy under the fire code. As such, it's required to comply with the automatic suppression requirements of the fire code.
Okay, so to go into all the rest of this stuff and to make it, what would you say?
Yes, we ask that you uphold the adjudication order as properly issued and remand it back to the Division of Fire and the Department of Building and Housing for further action.
And Mr. Chairman, but the appellant does have the right to present its matters before you so do. Thank you.
Yes, but I think that because there's these three issues here, and I think the main thing is this occupancy. Okay, and it's whether, the board says, yes, this is an occupancy issue. And in Cleveland, may not be anywhere else, but in Cleveland, it's considered to be an occupancy. And so, and I'm gonna refer to the rest of the board here on some opinions on this. So rather than to get into a whole lot of other stuff, even from Buckeye Eternals, that's a decision I think the board's going to have to either come to. So any other board members want to weigh in here on this?
Thanks, talking.
Mr. Dank is muted. It looks like he's talking.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Vanover, I know just a minute ago you went through the definition of occupancy from the Ohio Fire Code, but could you touch that one more time, please?
Yeah, bear with me again. Let me get back to it. So it's in chapter 3, under occupancy, high hazard, class 3. High hazard 3, buildings or structures containing materials that readily support combustion or that pose a physical hazard shall be classified as H3. Such materials shall include but not be limited to the following. And this is under the occupancy section of the fire code. And then it goes into class 1, 2, or 3A flammable or combustible liquids that are used or stored in normally closed containers or systems.
Okay.
Now, wait, I want to ask a question right in here because I know in the beginning it said building is
Or structure.
Yeah.
or a structure.
Including stored, the liquids that are used or stored in normally closed containers. So we concede that the inspection of tanks is and above ground storage tanks are beyond the scope of the building code. Those are inspected by other bodies and other entities, pressurized tanks, underground storage tanks, above ground storage tanks.
Would that be fire?
However, the suppression of those things, and this is under Mr. Chairman, under that logic, if you were to have a above ground pressurized storage tank in a structure or on a structure, that doesn't mean that that tank is treated. The tank itself is outside of our regulation, but how it is treated, how it is suppressed, how it is powered, how it is any other thing, many other things is not outside of our. I mean, it's still regulated by the fire code. So I think that this very focused, not whole interpretation that because the tanks themselves are not regulated by the building code, the suppression of the H3, the hazardous liquid, is most definitely covered by the fire code and building code.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to the appellant, is there a specific objection to that? Besides
Yes, we do, have objections to their use of the code, as well as whether or not our tank farm should be considered an occupancy. And Lloyd, can you speak to that, particularly, in response to, the statements that the city just made about our tanks, which also are not pressurized?
So I'll give Mr. Vanover, once I'm finished here, he can respond to me, but I believe he indicated he was quoting from the Ohio Fire Code, Chapter 3, in regards to the H occupancies. I'm looking through the Ohio Fire Code, Chapter 3, and I'm not finding anything in there in regards to that. Traditionally, an occupancy is defined within the building code. So Chapter 3 of the Ohio Building Code defines occupancies. And as stated in the memo from the Ohio Board of Building and Standards, the applicability of the Ohio Building Code to the type of tanks that we have in question here, it's not within the scope of the building code. Therefore, the means to assign an occupancy is gone. It's not an H occupancy. Chapter 50 of the Ohio Fire Code clearly indicates that it's outdoor storage, the tank itself. And then, like I said, once again, Chapter 57 lays out the types of, that's where it addresses fire protection. So there's an automatic mechanism within Chapter 9 of the Ohio Fire Code that automatically requires a fire extinguishing system for a H occupancy. With this not being an H occupancy, there's nothing from Chapter 9 that applies. Chapter 57 addresses when tank fire protection is required and how it should be done if it's required.
Mr. Chairman,
To
the
Mr.
appellant,
Vanover.
I'm referring to chapter 2 or 1301 colon 7-7-02, which is the definitions portion of the Ohio Fire Code. And in the definitions, under the definition of occupancy classification, it lists all the occupancy classifications up to and including H3 occupancies. So the definition is occupancy classification. And then as you read through the subcategories of occupancy classifications, H3 is identified as an occupancy for buildings or structures containing these materials.
There's a Board of Building Standards memo. It's 393.
I've read the memo. I've read the memo that states that what the
and that
From 2016.
and there's specific language addressing, and it says that the quote, that the only tanks that are within jurisdiction of the building departments are those tanks that are connected to and supply building service equipment. Building service equipment allows for the safe, sanitary, and engineered, energy efficient occupancy of a building and are within the scope of the OBC. While industrial processes, piping, equipment, components, and systems are not. They give specific examples where it says tanks that are not within the scope of the OBC would be above ground gasoline tanks and jet fuel tanks at bulk storage farms. It is the board's position that process equipment such as tanks are outside the scope of the board's rules.
Mr. Chairman, a question.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Dink.
If the Ohio Building Code doesn't have jurisdiction, does the Ohio Fire Code, can the Ohio Fire Code independently have jurisdiction? I don't know the answer to that question.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dank, I would, our position is to answer your question, yes. The Ohio Fire Code does have independent jurisdiction. We would also state that while this memo does clearly take these tanks out of the jurisdiction of the Ohio Building Code, it does not remove the suppression systems required for these tanks.
That's the essence of my question.
But I think that he did address that in what he said. It mentioned suppression systems to those tanks. Going back to Buckeyes, do you want to re-clarify what you said about or suppression systems along with those tanks?
Correct. Yes, chapter 57 defines within the Ohio Fire Code when fire suppression is required for the tanks. And then that same section also defines when it's required, what it must comply to.
So your argument is that 901.4.4 of the fire code does not comply to your tanks. Does not apply to your tanks.
Correct. We believe that it's being inappropriately applied for two reasons. One being the lack of an occupancy for the tanks themselves. As indicated by Ohio Fire Code Chapter 50, they're be treated as outdoor storage. And secondly, we believe that it's being inappropriately applied in regards to the hazard is addressed. It's already addressed by the Ohio Fire Code. It's addressed in Chapter 57.
So, Mr. Chairman, our position.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Our position is that the definition of H3 occupancy includes these tanks, includes these materials, and therefore 901.4.4 does apply because it is an occupancy.
And Mr. Chairman, in the alternative of that, if they wanted to say the only code that applies is the Ohio Fire Code, Ohio Fire Code specifically allows the city codes to be more restrictive than the local code can be more restrictive than the state code, whereas in the Ohio Building Code, we cannot do so. That would mean that they have to have the PIV, but we also believe it is still an occupancy. But if they want to argue in the alternative, so will we. Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, we're fine with adding a post indicator valve. We will get that added. We're fine with that. We agree that it's needed and it'd be a good addition.
Oh, so you're withdrawing that, number 6?
We'll add it.
Yeah, we're fine with withdrawing 6.
You're gonna comply with post indicator valves. Okay.
And so,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, then my question is that if it's similar to Mr. Danks, if they believe that this is wrong on behalf of the city, are they saying they can just put whatever they want in there?
No, I think they have to follow the Ohio Building Code to what they're citing. Is that correct?
Fire code.
Fire code, exactly.
We're saying that the system we've designed is in compliance with the Ohio Fire Code. That's our position.
Okay. And I think.
And we do not believe that we're in conflict with this system in regards to any municipal codes either.
So if I'm correct in hearing your argument, you believe that it's not chapter 9, it's chapter 57, correct?
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you will allow them to present their evidence in case to you, including their PowerPoint, in case they have anything further, they do have the right under due process. I don't want us to finish up and not allow them to present all of their evidence before we again ask that you find an occupancy, that you find that this is specifically a high hazard occupancy, that you uphold the orders properly issued, and remand to building and housing for further, unless you're going to hear their variance requests. But they do have the right under due process, and this board under chapter 119 has to allow them to present that information, evidence, and testimony. Thank you, sir. Of the 119 of the Ohio Revised Code. Thank you.
Okay, well, I would ask that is this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, and really we're looking at being a little more specific towards 1 and 3 in looking at this, and you have given already testimony to why you believe,
Chair, I agree. I cannot state enough that you have to allow them to present their evidence and testimony. Due process requires it. Bluntly, should there be an appeal to the Common Pleas Court under 250603, not allowing them to present evidence and testimony is one of the reasons to give people new hearings. So I would ask that you be generous and allow them that extra time. Thank you.
I will allow it if they think it's going to make
Thank
a
you.
difference. I would allow them to go ahead.
Whether
and
it makes a difference or not, I would state you have to allow it.
Well, if they want to present it, and that's
Okay,
what I'm asking.
that's different.
Okay, I'm just saying that if you think it's going to make a difference, go ahead and present it.
That's to you, Brandon.
All right, thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm not in the interest of extending this just for the sake of extending it. And to be honest, a lot of what we prepared has been covered. But there are some things that we would like to make sure that we can highlight here. So first, I will, since we've already been talking about the code, LB, I'll start with you. Can you,
That's too.
1 second, so I'm trying to make sure I'm not covering anything that I feel like we've already covered.
Do you want Maurice to bring up your PowerPoint or no? He's in the room here with us. That's why I was wondering.
Please.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
don't mind.
I just noticed it's up there. Thanks, Maurice. It's on screen. We have a visual of you guys as the big one. I didn't see the PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me if he wants.
Yeah, we got
Gotcha.
a big visual of the PowerPoint. Okay, actually, I'm gonna jump around a little bit because like I said, we've already covered some of this. But specifically, LB, I'd like to talk about the Ohio Fire Code. So this would be slide 11. I don't know who's controlling it, but. It's the big red one.
I think it's a slide 11.
There's no number.
Oh.
Keep going when it says OFC, you'll know. Next one. Next one.
Is that the one you want, Brandon?
Keep going back.
Yeah, the red one.
Oh,
the red one.
The red one?
Oh, it's green, sorry. Sorry, it's this one. I don't know why it's green.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So we talked about the codes that apply. And I just want you to talk about above ground storage tanks and how they're defined in the Ohio Fire Code.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they're defined as a vessel intended for fixed installation above grade, at grade, or below grade without backfill, used for the purpose of bulk storage, dispensing, handling, or processing of hazardous, flammable, or combustible liquids or gases, not connected to and utilized for the operation of building services equipment.
So based on that definition, we stated earlier that you're considering that our tank farm is an above ground tank and not a occupancy.
That is correct. It is to be protected in accordance with Chapter 50 of the Ohio Fire Code for outdoor storage. If that tank were in a building, that would be a different situation. As clearly indicated within the memo from the Ohio Buildings and Standards, if it was in a building, then it would be an H occupancy. But without it being in a building, it's not an H occupancy.
Over what chip already. He's skipping all the chip and then just going to LFA levels.
And in your experience, in your experience, first of all, do you have experience working outside of just this project, and what is that experience generally?
Yes, I've been in fire protection since 1997, I believe. I've been specifically working within these types of facilities since 2008. The engineering firm I work for does nothing but bulk fuel storage terminals. We work for multiple clients throughout the United States.
And as it relates to this project, what was your role in this project?
I'm the project manager for the engineering portion of it. I was also involved in the fire protection design for the project.
So when you helped design this project, did you take into account the codes, and which codes did you take into account?
Sure. Yeah. So I first started with all the codes adopted within the state of Ohio and within the city of Cleveland. We looked at the Ohio Building Code for its applicability, and there are areas that it is applicable outside of the tank farm. So we looked at that, especially on some of the other disciplines which have not been reviewed yet. We utilized the Ohio Building Code there, and we utilized the Ohio Fire Code and the Cleveland Municipal Codes throughout the remainder of the facility.
Okay, many of the codes that have been cited, we've already kind of gone back and forth on, so I don't want to rehash all of that. But I will ask you generally, from a code understanding perspective, if there's anything that we haven't covered or that you feel that we need to reiterate. Can you just speak to that generally in the way that the city has applied the code to Buckeye?
Sure, yeah, so, it's been my understanding that, the city has viewed, the tanks as H occupancies, from the beginning, even before the project. So they have tried to apply the Ohio Building Code, to the tanks to provide an occupancy. I think it's kind of critical to understand exactly how an H occupancy is defined. That is defined through Chapter 3 of the Ohio Building Code. And just the presence of flammable or combustible liquids does not mean that you have an H occupancy. Whether it be an open system or a closed system plays a factor, and the quantities of the fuels that you have play a factor in that as well. Of course, with the quantities we have, that if these tanks were within a building, they would be an H occupancy. But without being in a building, they're not an H occupancy. And same thing with 911-4.4. As I previously indicated, the intention of that section is to address occupancies that are hazardous. Occupancies that are hazardous that are not adequately addressed within the code. Whenever it is addressed within the code, the section doesn't apply. That's the intent of the International Code Council, which is responsible for the International Fire Code with that section.
Thank you. Greg, I want to ask you a few questions as well before we wrap up. And this is going to be directed more so towards the specific issues that we've discussed. The first being the automatic suppression system versus the manual suppression system, manually activated suppression system. And also the two connecting hydrants. So first, we've talked about the automatic activation system, but for the board, can you talk about the purpose of the plans here that Buckeye put in place and how they're different from what we already have, if at all?
So the main difference between the plans that we have now and the system that was installed in 1957 is that there were a number of steps that needed to go through to activate the foam system in the 1957 situation or system that's there now. The new system that's being designed has one step to activate the system. And that is, well, there's a step of someone has to recognize that there's a fire and they open one valve. The valve, everything is ready to go, and we open one valve. Time in tank fires is not absolutely critical. You don't have to extinguish the fire immediately at this particular second. As a matter of fact, there was a fire very successfully extinguished in Greensboro, North Carolina in the last 10 years on the Colonial Pipeline that was extinguished in several minutes, and it was burning for 5 hours before that. We're not interested in that here. We want to see a fire extinguished in its early stages here. We want to put the system in, but we're extremely concerned about millions of dollars of damage that would be done by an automatic system. And despite I've worked in the fire protection business since 1985, and even with double interlock pre-action systems in a large warehouse, I've watched them fail and freeze through hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that was 30 years ago. So we are concerned. We know that despite the best design, and we're going to design this system to the best of our possibility, there's still the potential for a piece of equipment failure, something goes wrong, and this is the national standard. This is a gold standard for fire suppression that we want to change to here. And I think that's a common ground that we have with the city, is that we want to improve the system. We want to make it right. We need a little collaboration with the city fire department to say, yeah, we're willing to come in, and just like we're willing to operate a PIV, as was testified by Lieutenant Alexiak, we're willing to make sure that there is indeed a fire here and turn the fire system on and let it do its thing.
So you talked a little bit about the effects of a false activation and how it can contaminate our supply. How does that affect the immediate infrastructure, the business infrastructure, not just at Buckeye, but throughout Cleveland or the region?
So I think that question is best answered by George.
Sure, so as a matter of fact, George, can you speak to that? Yes, it's George Gailey. So we have, you know, the picture overhead that you saw there, you know, that it may appear as if that's all Buckeye, but, you know, there is a neighboring terminal there, that's Zenith Terminal. So, you know, we actually only have 6 of the tanks that you saw there, but we have one line that supplies both those facilities. That line is originated from our Bradley Road facility. So, you know, in the event that, you know, we create a hazard with a, you know, false activation, you know, you do have or run the risk of backing up the city. So, you know, Zenith wouldn't be getting any products. We wouldn't be loading trucks out of our facility, you know, and depending on, you know, room or availability at our Bradley Road facility, I mean, there's a chance that, you know, maybe the airport doesn't have jet fuel. And it's not like something we can, you know, easily control. So when there's no room, you know, the lines just stop. So, you know, you may have jet fuel and it may be, you know, 90,000 barrels back, but we need to move 90,000 barrels. So, you know, you do get yourself into a, you know, kind of supply issue. So, and I don't know that that's like the biggest problem. You know, the biggest problem to me is if you make it automatic, what's to stop it from overflowing the dikes and going into the water? That's kind of like my stance on it. So, you know, if we are on site or if the fire department is on site, we can very easily open one valve, have the fire go out, you know, and it'll be a controlled effort versus you deal with, you know, false alarms and.
Okay, is there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, another situation, and I know of at least 3 occurrences in the last 5 years. A hazardous situation is created through a false activation within the tank in the aspect of once you start draining that product out and that floating roof is not able to set on that product and do its job, then you create a vapor space there that can cause a tank fire. So I know of at least 3 occasions in the last 5 years throughout the United States where that particular situation has caused a fire within the tank while they were cleaning the tank. So there are multiple hazards that can be created in addition to what George said in regards to should the thing activate in the middle of the night, no one respond, no one get a notification, and it ran and it overflowed the dikes. That's certainly a situation that could happen.
Okay. So I want to wrap up shortly because I don't want to just keep us here forever. Can we go back to slide 4? It's a overview of another tank farm.
Buckeye, Baltimore.
Is that the Baltimore one?
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh.
Buckeye, Pittsburgh, near Ohio River?
One more.
Yep.
Okay, and we would again
Yeah, one more
object, Mr. Chairman, we'll again object for the stated previous regions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your objection.
Understood.
What is your objection?
This is not Ohio Fire Code. This is not Cleveland. It's not, wait, are these PIBs?
They look like PIBs.
These look like PIBs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that, for the stated reasons I made before, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
I'm just for the
Okay.
record. Thank you.
Yeah, they're presenting it and we
Right.
hear what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Okay, Greg, I'll jump back to you. Are you familiar with this facility?
Yes, I am. It's our Pittsburgh terminal in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania.
And can you briefly describe for us what the fire suppression system is there?
Sure. We heard testimony about the concerns of fuel tanks along the river and, you know, causing a major problem. We have dozens of facilities along the rivers. This is one example in Pittsburgh that sits on the Ohio River, a major thoroughfare, and of course a major water supply. And in this case, the design of this system is almost exactly the same as the design of what we're using now. There's several step process here to turn on the fire pump and then turn on the foam to the particular tank.
Can I get the next frame?
Is it banned or?
Or next slide.
I anticipate the answer is no.
And the green tanks, when you see them in the picture, they are our facility. The other tanks that are not circling green are someone else's facility.
Is this is another facility that, okay.
Again, the green tanks are ours, the green circle tanks, the other tanks are not. This sits on the Baltimore Harbor, flows into the Chesapeake River, and then eventually into the Atlantic Ocean. In this case, this system, this here, design here, which is approved by the city of Baltimore, has no foam connection. It simply has or I should say, no fixed foam system. It has a connection where the fire department were to connect their pumper apparatus to the semi-fixed manual system on the tank. So they'd have to verify first that the tank is on fire, connect to it, bring foam over to hook it up to make it operate.
Okay, and we have one last one. Can we go to the next slide? Yep. And where's this one located? Well,
so this is on Hudson River, upstream from New York City. There's actually two terminals. One on the left is Albany, New York. The one on the right is Rensselaer, New York. Both of those are designed and operate similar to the existing system at our Cleveland terminal, which requires the fire pump to be started and then the valves open to the tanks in the tank farm, the correct valve open. And again, just to reiterate, the system that we're planning for Cleveland is simpler to operate than this. It's simply to open one valve that goes to the right tank, and having someone there to make sure that it's the right thing to do.
All right, thanks, Greg. I will briefly conclude just by stating that the crux of Buckeye's argument today is that it's twofold. One, that the city has misapplied these fire codes to Buckeye for the reasons that we've already stated. Namely being that we are not an occupancy, we're a tank farm, and should be treated as such. And the Board of Building Standards has issued a memo stating such. Additionally, the city does not have, even though we are deferential to the city in the way that it applies the code, it does not have carte blanche to just do what it wants. It must follow the code and justify their decisions, even if they're backed up by the code. Or even if they're claiming they're backed up by the code. So even if we do need to, a phrase we used earlier, convince the city, we'd ask this board to consider that the city also must justify its actions, and it has to make sense. I mean, we just explained that this is Buckeye's not Buckeye's first rodeo with similarly situated tank farms. We know that Cleveland is unique. It's not exactly the same. But we implore this board to just take a look at this and really, think about the environmental, the potential supply chain issues, and just what makes sense.
And Mr. Chairman, just as we would like you to take into account the scope of 901 that Lieutenant McGowan has for you, because one, we're not misreading the code. Two, we're not misapplying the code. We don't need to be convinced, but the code specifically and clearly states that this applies to suppression systems. As Mr. Vanover stated, we all agree the tanks are the tanks. It's the regulated systems here. It is not the tanks that we're regulating. So if Lieutenant McGowan could point to the specific language. Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there any other comments?
Yeah, actually, if you could just hear this, it's specifically from the code section.
Lieutenant McGowan, Cleveland Fire. Chapter 9 of the Ohio Fire Code is fire protection systems. 901.1, the scope of the whole chapter 9 is the provisions of this rule shall specify where fire protection systems are required and shall apply to the design, installation, inspection, operation, testing, and maintenance of all fire protection systems. The requirements in this rule for fire protection systems in structures regulated by the building code, as listed in Rule 1301.2 7-7-80 of the OAC submitted for plan review in accordance with this paragraph are subject to and do not supersede or otherwise conflict with requirements of this paragraph. D2A 104.2.1 of Rule 1301 7-701 of the Ohio Administrative Code.
That's the OAC references as the 1301, as you know, Mr. Chairman, of the Ohio Administrative Code, which the scope of 901, it clearly applies. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vanover?
I just, the only thing I have left to say is that use and occupancy is defined under Chapter 3 of the Building Code. Yes, but it is also defined in the definitions of the Ohio Fire Code. And as such, based on what Lieutenant McGowan just read, the application of Chapter 9, it takes on that application through the lens of Chapter 2, the occupancy definitions. This occupancy is, as we are citing it, is not the Chapter 3 definition under the Building Code, but the Chapter 2 definition under the Ohio Fire Code. And therefore they all connect, and we just reiterate that this is an occupancy and that it is required to have an automatic suppression system. We understand the loss of product and the economics, but I don't believe anything else other than an economic problem I don't believe that supersedes the safety requirements. That's all.
What's your ask?
We ask that you find that the adjudication order was properly issued, and that short of requesting a variance, that you remand it to the Department of Building and Housing and the Division of Fire for further action.
Any comments by Buckeye?
No. Oh, actually, Patty, I know throughout this week, there was something that you asked me to send you. Well, was it those statistics? Was that it?
Yeah, the fire stats. Are you asking for a variance? He wanted to know your comments on the ask. So the city stated its ask.
Oh, comments on the ask?
On the request before the board, yes.
Yes, so we are asking, one, that the board ruled that the codes were misapplied, and therefore do not apply, and so we should not have to adhere to those issues that were stated in presenting in resubmitting our permit, and in the alternative in finding that the codes do apply, we request a variance.
A variance to which in the code requirements?
That would be specifically, hold on, let me pull the codes in. It's 901.4.4 of the OBC and 901.2 of the Ohio Fire Code.
Which item numbers? Mr. Chairman?
I think it's
to the appellant.
This is
Which
issues,
item
those are
numbers?
issues 1 and 3.
Yeah.
1 and 3,
I
okay.
didn't want to speak to him, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, sorry.
And
1 and 3.
that's basically going to occupancy, and you're kind of citing that it's the Ohio Building Code that you're citing, and that these codes don't actually apply for suppression.
Right. We're arguing that the codes do not apply because we're not in occupancy, but also that the codes do not apply here because the city is using essentially catch-all codes when there are specific codes, particularly Chapter 50 and 57 of the Ohio Fire Code that address the issues here.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to put something together here, and we'll see what happens. But I'm finding that this is within the jurisdiction of what our building building code and Cleveland Building Code and its fire believe that it's being cited under. And so I'm going to go ahead and state that we are going to agree with that, and that a motion is in order to deny or actually to remand this, not to deny any time, but to remand this back to the Division of Building and Housing and Fire for any further action on this particular item.
Mr. Chairman, a suggestion of a friendly amendment to that. I do agree the Ohio Building Code does not have jurisdiction. The Ohio Fire Code does. The 20-minute delay that is a unique circumstance in Cleveland, I feel allows the fire department to invoke 901.4.4 and call for an automatic system. But in all of this discussion, I'm distracted by thinking a CCTV system and a motorized valve would prevent false activation. And that seems to me to be a very reasonable compromise. So I don't know if that's helpful to the appellant, and I don't know if that's acceptable to the board, but personally, I feel that might address all parties' concerns.
So that might be, that wouldn't even be a variance. That would be an ask, basically.
It would be a variance in as much as it wouldn't be a fully automatic system. It would be, I don't know what you would call it, a supervised automatic system.
Okay, so that would be a variance to this, to what the request by fire is.
Discussion?
Yes.
I
Who
believe
asked for
fire, this is Patty, Mr. Chairman, thank you. You called it a what?
Pre-action.
They're calling it a pre-action system. I don't know if that helps anyone.
And Mr. Chairman, we would ask that if that were the case, they be allowed to submit that. We would then adjudicate it accordingly, and then it would come before this board again, as opposed to trying to design it
I agree.
in a resolution.
Okay, that's even better yet. So what we would do is give them how much time?
We would ask that you remand it, that you find it was properly issued, remand it back to the Division of Fire and the Department of Building and Housing, and then at their own time frame, they can resubmit. And, the way the process is designed, they can submit as often as they wish, and we can adjudicate it, and they can have as many appeals as they wish based on that process. So I don't think that you need to set a time. If you find it properly issued, remand it back to us, then they can submit an alternative design with a pre-action system. We can review it accordingly and either approve it or deny it. And if we deny it, they can come back here and request that the board approve it.
Okay. All right, so that's what we'll do. We find that it was properly issued and that we're going to remand it back to fire and the city for any further action. And this would give Buckeye the opportunity to send in as much information, on that system or whatever else for review. Motion is so in order.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Denk.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maskey.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Okay, the notice will be sent within 2 weeks. Thank you all.
Thank you for your time and attention. Brandon, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I won't be at my office for about another hour and a half, and I'm out until next week, but I'm happy to talk.
Okay, no problem. It'll probably be next week.
Okay, sounds good.
And thank you, board.
Okay,
for your
thank you,
time.
gentlemen. Okay, next order of business, I believe, is the approval of resolutions.
Don't forget the one was amended on 202. Okay. Thank you guys. I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
Yeah. You can.
Patty, kill your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Maskey.
Thank you.
Approval Approval of resolutions, A 99, 19922, 200 and dash 22, 201, 22, 203, 22, 202, 22, 204, 22, 206, 22, and 855, 23. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved, Mr. Maskey, second by Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Approval of minutes, March 29, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections?
No.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Maskey, second by Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Maskey,
Yes.
Mr. Dink,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher.
Yes. Is there any further business to come before us?
No.
Okay.